For centuries, across the wide galaxy, there were whispers of a species that once walked among the stars. The name of this species was human. But to most, it was only a story, a tale told to frighten children or to fill the silence of long voyages. Merchants in smoky cantinas spoke of them when trade was slow. Scholars debated their existence in dusty halls, but nobody truly believed. They were myths, shadows of the past. Nothing more. Alien historians claimed that humans had been too violent, too unpredictable, too wild to survive. They pointed to crumbling ruins on forgotten worlds and said, "Look, here is proof they once were, but they burned themselves away." Yet in quiet corners of the galaxy, there were others who whispered differently. They said humans were not gone. They were only waiting. They were hidden, gathering strength in the dark, and one day they would return. It began with small things. Signals on the edges of star systems, faint and broken. Nothing that matched known frequencies. Smugglers reported seeing shadows drifting behind asteroid belts, whole ships vanishing into black voids where scanners picked up nothing. Captains dismissed these as malfunctions. Space is full of tricks. They said stars bend light, void storms interfere. But then the stories began to repeat. Too many, too similar, on the outer rim. A lone cargo vessel named the Silver Crest reported being followed for 3 days by silent ships. They had no markings, no registry. They did not answer hails. They simply followed, staying just at the edge of sensor range. When the crew finally tried to flee through a jump gate, the shadows were gone, leaving no trace. The Silver Crest's captain swore before the galactic authorities that he had seen them. Black hulls against the stars, massive and unyielding. The authorities laughed. The council dismissed his testimony, but the fear spread faster than light. Other freighters spoke of the same shadows that came and went, sometimes with a flash of white light across their hulls. No one knew what it meant. Some thought it was pirates with new cloaking devices. Others believed it was the return of a lost empire, but old scholars leaned forward in their chairs and whispered a single word. Humans, among the Valtharian colonies, children started drawing pictures of black ships with glowing lines. They claimed they saw them in dreams. In visions, elders grew restless, for their ancient texts told of humans as warriors who had shattered worlds with their fleets. Some elders begged their people to prepare. Others warned not to speak such things, for fear would only bring the myths closer. But no matter how hard they tried, the whispers grew louder. A mining station on the far edge of the Delaris cluster reported an encounter more terrifying than any. Their scanners caught movement, thousands of small contacts moving in formation. The crew thought it was a glitch, until they looked with their eyes against the backdrop of stars. Dark shapes moved with precision. A fleet so large it seemed to swallow space itself. The station broadcast distress calls for hours. But when reinforcements arrived, there was nothing left. The miners were gone. The station abandoned. Only the message remained, a broken transmission repeating over and over. They are real. They are here. At first, governments tried to cover the truth, saying the station had suffered from mechanical failure, saying the freighters had invented ghost stories. But the galaxy is wide, and rumors spread quicker than lies. Soon, every pilot, every trader, every wanderer carried the same story: black ships in the dark. Ships that did not belong, ships that matched no record, ships that reminded them of the old drawings carved into ruins from thousands of years ago in a small colony town on the edge of the council's reach. An old woman named Mara sat with her grandchildren and told them the story her grandmother once told her. She spoke of a people born from a death world, who learned not to fear the cold or the dark, who built weapons when others built walls, who spread across the stars with fury and fire. They are not gone, she whispered. They are waiting. Her grandchildren shivered, though the fire burned warm, and still the shadows came closer. Patrol ships started to vanish, not destroyed. Not raided, simply gone, as if pulled from existence. The council met in secrecy, fearing the truth, fearing the return of something they could not control. For the myths had said that when humans came, they would not kneel, they would not beg. They would arrive with fleets that could break the heavens in dark chambers. Alien rulers prayed it was only stories, but deep inside, each of them knew the same chilling truth. The shadows were real. The myths were not myths at all. And one day soon, the galaxy would see them again. Humanity was out there waiting, and their return would shake the stars themselves. Commander Alira had seen many strange things in her years of service, but nothing prepared her for the night her sensors lit up with warnings. Her ship, the Valtharian cruiser Dawnspear, drifted silently along the edge of the Tayari Nebula. Her crew tired after weeks of patrol. Suddenly the control deck filled with a low alarm. One of her lieutenants shouted, "Multiple contacts, approaching fast." Alira frowned. "Show me." The screen lit up. At first, she thought it was interference. Static from the nebula often confused their sensors. But this was different. Sharp readings, solid forms, and they were huge. Shadows sliding across. Her screen like leviathans in the deep sea. Her crew leaned forward, eyes wide. One whispered, "Pirates." Another whispered, "No." Too many, and then they saw them. The nebula clouds parted just enough for the stars to reveal the truth. Massive ships emerged. Their hulls black as the void itself. No bright colors, no alien banners. Only dark metal that swallowed the light. Along their sides ran glowing white markings. Lines and circles in a language no one aboard recognized. The ships moved with perfect formation, silent, disciplined, unstoppable. Alira's throat went dry. She tried to speak, but her words caught. Finally, she whispered, "They're not supposed to be real." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The young ensign by the coms asked, "Should I hail them?" Alira hesitated. She had read the ancient stories, the ones dismissed as children's myths. She knew the name whispered in fear humans. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Still, she gave the order, "Open a channel." Kayyum. The Dawnspire's speakers hummed with static. No reply came. Alira's voice grew louder. "This is Commander Alira of the Valtharian Armada. Identify yourselves." Silence answered the dark. Ships continued to advance, their engines glowing faint blue. Not the roaring fire of other fleets, but controlled, calm, steady, as though they had no need to rush. Her crew began to panic. "Should we retreat?" One asked, another shouted, "They're aiming weapons." But strangely, no attack came. The Black Fleet passed by them, silent giants moving as one. Their precision was terrifying. No wasted movement, no drifting from formation. Hundreds of ships sliding past like predators in the night. Alira's hands shook as she ordered, "Record everything, transmit it to High Command." Her voice cracked. "Make sure the galaxy sees this." For a long moment, the bridge was silent, except for the hum of engines. Every officer stared at the main screen as ship after ship glided past. Battleships, carriers, cruisers, their designs unlike anything in the archives, brutal and efficient, made for war. Her tactical officer whispered, "I count at least 300 vessels, maybe more." His voice faltered. "Commander, if they wanted to, they could destroy us all right now." Alira knew he was right. Her ship was strong, but against a fleet like this, it would be nothing more than dust. Yet the dark ships ignored them, as if Dawnspire was nothing more than a drifting insect. The insult almost hurt more than the fear. Humanity did not even bother to strike. They simply revealed themselves, then continued into the deeper void. When the last ship passed, the crew exhaled as if waking from a nightmare. Alira sat frozen in her chair, her hands clenched tight. She replayed the image in her mind, the black hulls, the glowing white markings, the way they moved as though the stars themselves parted for them. She finally spoke, her voice low but firm. "They are not myths, not anymore," the crew whispered. Among themselves, fear mixing with awe, one young officer said softly, "We saw them." The Star Shatterers, another muttered. "They could have ended us, but they didn't." Illyra rose from her chair and walked to the viewport. She stared at the distant lights of the departing fleet. Her heart heavy. She knew what their presence meant. The galaxy would change, and nothing would ever be the same. The transmission from Dawnspire reached the Valtharian command within hours, and from there it spread like wildfire. Every major power received the footage. Ambassadors watched in disbelief as the grainy images revealed massive vessels cutting through the stars. Arguments erupted immediately. Some said it was a hoax, a trick by rival empires, but too many ships, too many witnesses confirmed the truth. The humans had returned. In secret halls, alien leaders watched the footage again and again, pausing to study the markings on the ships. Comparing them to old ruins and forgotten records, the symbols matched, the old warnings carved in stone. Warnings that said, "Beware the children of Earth, for their fleets bring fire." Meanwhile, aboard the Dawnspear, Commander Illyra stood in silence. Her crew restless but quiet, her eyes still fixed on the stars where the fleet had vanished. She whispered more to herself than anyone else. "We just witnessed the beginning of something the galaxy is not ready for." Her words chilled her crew, for deep down, they all knew she was right. The myths were no longer whispers. They were real, and their first sighting had shaken the galaxy to its core. The humans had returned, and their warfleet had stepped out of legend into the light of stars once more. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so loud. Voices of dozens of species clashed against each other. The air filled with panic and anger. Some slammed their fists on the shining table. Others hissed or screeched in their native tongues. The news of the Black Fleet had spread faster than light. Every screen replayed the same terrifying image: massive human warships sliding silently past the Dawnspire. Ambassador Rennick of the Dratheens stood tall, his crimson scales glimmering under the chamber lights. His voice cut through the chaos. "If these myths command fleets of that size, then we are already too late," his words echoed, drawing silence for a moment. He pointed a clawed finger at the council. "You fools laughed when the first reports came. You dismissed the whispers. Now they have revealed themselves, and we stand unprepared." Across the table, Ambassador Lyrish of the Cerealians hissed in reply, her long serpentine body coiling in agitation. "Perhaps it is a trick. Perhaps the Valthorians staged this to frighten us, to force unity under their command." Her tone dripped with suspicion, but her eyes betrayed fear. Deep down, she did not believe her own words. The footage was too real, too raw. The council leader, an aged Joran named Kelros, slammed his staff on the floor. The deep thud silenced the chamber again. His voice shook but carried weight. "Enough. The images are not lies. Our analysts have confirmed the markings on those ships. They match. Ruins left on abandoned colonies. Ruins tied to one word: humans." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. That word had not been spoken aloud in centuries. Old scholars had warned about them for generations. They said humans were born from a death world, a planet that forged them in fire and storms. A place where survival meant strength, where weakness meant death. They had spread across the stars long ago, and then vanished. No one knew why. Some claimed they destroyed themselves. Others claimed they hid, waiting. Now it seemed the second was true. Ambassador Rennock snarled, "You sit here debating lies while fleets of shadow glide through our sectors. What happens when they decide to strike? What happens when they demand territory? Will you still argue like frightened hatchlings? Several others shouted back, some demanding war, others demanding peace. The council had never been so divided. Ambassador Tillin of the Varian spoke softly but firmly. We should not provoke them. The footage shows their power. One fleet moved. Like a single blade, no hesitation, no weakness. If they wished to destroy the Dawnspire, they would have, but they did not. That means something. His words brought a flicker of hope, but also unease, because the unknown was even more terrifying. Then war, behind closed doors, secret meetings were held. Intelligence officers studied every frame of the recording. They enlarged the markings on the human ships. The circle with 3 sharp lines burned into every hull. Alien historians flipped through old records, and their hearts sank. The same crest had been carved into the ruins of abandoned cities thousands of years ago, cities that bore the scars of great wars, scars that never healed. In the shadows of the chamber, a younger delegate whispered to his mentor, "Are they gods? Or demons?" The elder shook his head, his voice heavy with dread. "Neither, they are humans, and that is worse." Some species cried for immediate defense. They wanted fleets built, weapons tested, alliances forged. Others spoke of negotiation, of sending envoys to meet this admiral named Luke Carter, whose name had begun to appear in intercepted transmissions. But none could agree. Fear poisoned every word. Unity was impossible. Ambassador Ranak once again slammed his claw against the table, his voice rising above all others. "Listen to me. If they return in force, no empire alone can resist them. We must act now, or we will be swept aside like dust." His words found support among the hawks of the council. But others, the cautious ones, trembled at the thought of challenging the myths too soon. At last, council leader Kelrose rose again, his voice tired. "We cannot decide today. But one thing is clear. Humanity has returned, and the balance of power has already shifted." His staff struck the ground again. The chamber fell silent. Every ambassador knew the truth. The galaxy was no longer the same outside the chamber. Citizens across hundreds of worlds spoke the same word in hushed voices. Mothers warned their children. Merchants repeated rumors in marketplaces. Soldiers sharpened their blades with trembling hands. The fear spread like a sickness. Humans, the myths, the shadows, the star shatterers, they were back. And as the council argued through the night in the depths of space, the Black Fleet continued its silent advance, indifferent to the chaos it had unleashed. To them, the council's fear meant nothing. For they had waited centuries for this moment. They had returned, not to ask, not to bow, but to remind the galaxy of who they were. On the command deck of the flagship Horizon's Edge, Admiral Luke Carter stood tall, his eyes locked on the galaxy. Map projected before him, small lights flickered across the stars, each marking a sighting, each confirming what he already knew. The galaxy had finally seen them. There was no turning back now. The Horizon's Edge was a massive warship, larger than most fleets' flagships combined. Her black hull carried the markings of humanity's return. A glowing white cresta circle cut by 3 sharp lines set into her sides like a scar. Crews bustled across the bridge, moving with a discipline born from centuries of hidden preparation. They were not surprised. They were not afraid. They had been waiting for this day. Captain Nina Roberts stood beside Luke, her voice calm but steady. "They know we're here now." Luke gave a faint smile, not of arrogance, but of certainty. "Good, let them see us." His tone carried confidence, as if the unveiling of humanity was not a risk, but a promise. The promise of something greater than fear. For generations, humans had vanished from the galactic stage. Their colonies erased from maps, their ruins dismissed as legend. But in the void between stars, they had endured. hidden, building, training. Their war fleets constructed in silence. Their people hardened by exile, while the galaxy mocked their memory. Humanity forged itself into steel. Luke walked the bridge slowly, his boots echoing against the metal. Every officer turned slightly to acknowledge him. Their faces reflected the same fire, a fire that came from knowing they carried the weight of a forgotten people. "We are not ghosts," Luke said quietly, but every soul on the bridge heard him. "We are the children of Earth, and today the galaxy remembers our name," the communication officer called out. "Admiral, multiple council transmissions are trying to break through our jammers." Luke shook his head. "Ignore them. Not yet. Let them wonder. Let them argue." Nina raised an eyebrow. "They're terrified. Some will call for war, some for peace." Luke's gaze never left the stars, "And both will come, but on our terms." Deep in the ship's lower decks, soldiers prepared for battle. Marines checked their weapons, engineers fine-tuned the railguns. Pilots sat in cockpits waiting for orders. The atmosphere was not of fear, but of anticipation, as if every human aboard had lived their entire life for this moment. Because in truth, their parents had trained them for it. Their grandparents had spoken of it. Stories passed down like sacred scripture. One day, humanity would rise again on the observation deck. Young cadets stared out at the endless stars. One whispered to another, "Do you think the aliens will fight us?" The older cadet answered, "Of course they will, but they don't know us yet. They don't know what we are capable of." Their voices were quiet, but there was no doubt in them. Not a trace of hesitation. Luke's mind wandered to the past, to the years when humanity's survivors had first gathered on hidden worlds, broken, scattered, but never defeated. He remembered the stories of the old Earth, of a blue planet lost in the mist of time, a cradle that forged warriors, dreamers, and survivors. He whispered softly under his breath, "We carry you with us still." It was not for the crew, not for the council, it was for Earth. Nina's voice pulled him back. "The scouts report the Shaker Dominion is mobilizing near the border. They think we're weak. They want to test us." Luke nodded, his jaw tightening. "Then we will show them. Not with words, but with fire." He turned to his officers, his voice firm. "Prepare the fleet. Battle Group Alpha will engage. The rest will hold formation." The bridge came alive with motion. Orders relayed, engines roaring to life. Weapons charging the horizon's edge vibrated with power, but Luke remained still, his calm presence anchoring everyone. "Captain," he said to Nina, "when history records this day, Kay will remember not the myths, not the fear, but the truth. We came back, and we never left." The fleet around Horizon's edge shifted into perfect formation. Dozens of warships aligning like hunters ready to strike. Black hulls glimmered faintly against starlight. The galaxy watched through hidden eyes, spies and scouts transmitting images to every empire. And for the first time in centuries, a human name spread across alien tongues, whispered with fear, and a Luke Carter in the council chamber's light years. A way that name was already being debated. Leaders repeated it again and again, uncertain of how one man could carry such weight. But in the silence of the human flagship, Luke knew it was not his name alone. It was the name of his people. The name that would shatter the stars if needed. As the horizon's edge advanced, Luke's voice echoed once more across the bridge. "Steady now, the galaxy is watching. Let them see what it means to stand against humanity." His words fell heavy but true. The crew responded with a single, unified motion. A discipline that came not from fear, but from belief. And so, with calm certainty, the black fleet of humanity pressed deeper into alien territory. Silent giants under the command of Admiral Luke Carter. No longer myths, no longer whispers, but a living storm that would soon show the galaxy exactly why their name had been feared in the first place. The Shaker Dominion was not known for patience. They were proud, arrogant, and feared across half the galaxy. When they heard whispers of the human fleet, they laughed. Their warlords declared that myths could not harm them, and even if humans were real, they would be crushed like insects. To prove their strength, they gathered an armada of their finest warships. Hundreds of vessels bristling with weapons, each captain eager to bring back the head of this so-called human admiral. From their command throne, High Warlord Dren growled to his generals. Find them, destroy them, and show the galaxy that Shakar Steel fears nothing. His words were met with roars of approval, and so the armada leaped into the void, their engines burning like a storm. Scouts soon reported that the humans had been sighted near the Aerith system. It was the perfect chance a single human battle group had strayed from the main fleet. Alone, vulnerable, or so it seemed, the Shaker fleet arrived with fury. Weapons charged, banners raised, their ships spread wide to encircle the enemy. But what they found waiting was nothing like they expected. The humans did not scatter. They did not retreat. Instead, they moved into formation so tight and precise it looked like one massive living creature. Every ship aligned with deadly purpose. At the center loomed the horizon's edge. Black and immense, its white markings glowing. Against the starlight, Admiral Luke Carter stood on the bridge, calm as the storm approached, beside him. Captain Nina Roberts reported, "Enemy fleet closing, numbers overwhelming. They mean to surround us." Luke's lips curled into the faintest smile. "Good. Let them think they are hunters. They are about to learn the truth." His voice carried steady across the bridge. His crew did not flinch. Every man and woman had trained for this moment their whole lives. The first wave of Shakor fire lit the void. Plasma cannons and disruptor beams streaked across space. The human shields flared bright but held firm. Then Luke raised his hand, his voice quiet but sharp, "Return fire." The order spread instantly. Railguns roared, their kinetic slugs tearing through space faster than light. Missiles streaked forward in swarms, guided by artificial intelligence that hunted like predators. The Shaker ships were torn apart in seconds. Shields crumbled under the impact of weapons they had never seen before. A single railgun volley punched through the armor of 3 cruisers. Splitting them open like fragile shells, fire erupted across. The battlefield alien commanders screamed for order. But their formations were already broken. The humans pressed forward with terrifying precision. To the outside viewer, it looked less like a battle and more like a slaughter. The human warships moved like wolves. Cutting into their prey with ruthless efficiency, squadrons of fighters launched from Horizon's edge, weaving through enemy. Fire, targeting engines and command centers within minutes. The first wave of the Shaker fleet was nothing but wreckage drifting among burning stars. On the bridge of Horizon's edge, reports came in fast. 12 enemy ships destroyed, shields holding at 9 to 4%. All squadrons accounted for. Nina turned to Luke, her eyes steady. "They are collapsing." Luke gave a single nod. "Press the attack. No mercy. They chose this fight." His voice carried a finality that chilled even the most hardened. "Crew, the second wave of Shaker vessels tried to retreat. But the humans did not allow it. Missile barrages cut down fleeing ships. Railgun fire disabled their engines. One by one, they fell into silence. The High Warlord's flagship struggled to hold formation, its shields glowing bright under relentless assault. Dren's voice thundered across his bridge. "Impossible. No fleet fights like this. No one can do this." But his words could not change the truth before his eyes within 20 minutes. An armada that once terrified the galaxy was reduced to ashes. Burning hulks drifted silently, their crews gone, their banners shattered. The humans stood victorious, not a single one of their vessels destroyed. The silence that followed was worse than the battle itself. A silence that carried fear across the galaxy. Luke Carter stood at the viewport, watching the debris scatter across the void. His expression unreadable. He whispered quietly, "They wanted to test us. Now they know the price." His crew stood in silence, knowing the message had been sent. Every empire watching would understand humans were not myths. They were warriors, and they had returned stronger than ever. News of the battle spread instantly. Transmitted by Shakar distress calls before they were silenced, the galaxy saw the feeds of human warships tearing through fleets with mechanical precision. Saw missiles blot out the stars. Saw ships reduced to burning fragments across worlds. People whispered the same word in awe and terror: humans. On the council floor, ambassadors who had once dismissed the warnings sat in silence. None dared to laugh now. The myths had become reality, and reality had turned into fear. One ambassador whispered, "A single battle group destroyed an armada." Another muttered, "What happens when their full fleet moves?" But no one had an answer, and far out in the void, Horizon's Edge stood untouched, its black hull reflecting the flames of its enemies. Luke Carter closed his eyes for a moment, remembering the centuries of silence, the long wait, the rebuilding, the losses endured. Now humanity had shown its hand, and the galaxy would never see the stars the same way again after the destruction of the Shaker Dominion Armada. The galaxy was never the same for centuries. Humans had been nothing more than ghost stories, a word whispered in shadows, a warning to children. But now their ships were seen in the open, black giants patrolling the void, their glowing white markings burning in the eyes of every witness. No longer myths. They were legends reborn on distant colonies. Children pointed to the sky and shouted when they saw the human fleet pass. The Star Shatterers, they called them, their parents, hushed them quickly, afraid of saying the name too loud. But even fear could not hide the truth. Humanity was here, and their presence could not be ignored. Merchants traveling trade lanes spoke in awe of the encounters. Convoys had been shadowed by human warships, silent and watchful, yet they never attacked the weak. They only interfered when raiders or pirates tried to strike. One freighter captain told the story in every bar from the outer rim to the core. "A pirate fleet trapped us. 20 ships closing in, and just as we thought it was the end." Black shapes emerged from hyperspace. The pirates were gone in minutes. Humans saved us, then vanished without a word. The tale spread like wildfire. Worlds once ruled by chaos found a strange order wherever the humans appeared. They did not occupy, they did not demand tribute, but their presence alone brought silence. Pirates avoided their patrols. Slavers abandoned their routes. Smugglers whispered that the black ships could appear anywhere, anytime, like shadows that hunted the guilty on the horizon's edge. Admiral Luke Carter listened to the reports with calm eyes. Captain Nina Roberts read the transmissions, dozens of colonies reporting sightings. Some calling you protector, others calling you monster. Luke leaned back in his chair, his voice steady. "It doesn't matter what name they use. What matters is they will remember us." His words carried weight. The bridge fell quiet, because every officer knew he was right. In the council chambers across the galaxy, fear deepened. Leaders argued night and day. Some said the humans were saviors, keeping peace where no other fleets could. Others warned that this was only the beginning, that humans were testing their strength, waiting for the right moment to strike. But no matter the argument, one truth silenced them. All the humans had returned, and no empire could deny it. Ambassador Rennick of the Drathions raised his claw in fury. "Do you not see? They choose where they appear. They choose who lives and who dies. They hold power greater than any of us, and they use it with silence. That silence is more dangerous than war. His words shook the council, because silence carried mystery. And mystery carried fear. Meanwhile, on border worlds, alien civilians began to carve the human crest into stone walls. The circle with 3 sharp lines became a symbol of protection. Some prayed to it, others cursed it, but all recognized it in less than a year. Humanity's mark spread across the stars faster than any empire's flag on the Bridge of Horizons. Edge Luke Carter stood by the viewport, the stars stretching endlessly before him. His reflection in the glass showed a man carrying the weight of a people thought extinct. Nina joined him, her voice quiet. They're starting to believe in us again, not just fear us, but believe. Luke did not turn, his voice steady. Belief is more powerful than fear, but it is also more dangerous. If they worship us, they will expect us to be gods, and we are not gods, we are survivors. The crew around them moved with quiet determination. Engineers tending to weapons, pilots maintaining fighters, Marines training for the next battle. They were not just a fleet. They were the living memory of humanity, carrying the legacy of Earth in their blood. Every order Luke gave, every maneuver they made, reminded the galaxy that humans had not perished. They had endured. Stories began to shift. Once humans were spoken of as destroyers, now whispers told of saviors. Yet the darker stories remained. Tales of entire pirate clans erased in a single night. Of warlords who challenged them and never returned. For some, humans were a shield. For others, a sword waiting to strike. But either way, they had become something greater than myth. They had become the legend reborn, and so the galaxy changed. Empires watched with dread as human fleets drifted through their borders. Unchallenged, unstoppable, the balance of power shifted not through treaties or conquests, but through presence. One name echoed across the stars louder than any anthem. Humanity on the horizon's edge. Luke whispered to himself, though the crew around him still heard. We are no longer forgotten. The stars know our name again. His voice carried into silence, a silence filled with both hope and fear, because the galaxy had seen the return of the myths, and now lived under the shadow of their legend. The Galactic Council had no choice. The whispers of humans had turned into open sightings. Their fleets moved across sectors freely, and after the destruction of the Shaker Dominion Armada, the galaxy trembled in silence, so the Council called for an emergency summit. Every ambassador arrived with fear heavy in their eyes. No one spoke of trade or borders. No one argued about taxes or treaties. The only subject on every tongue was humanity. In the Grand Chamber, 1,000 voices rose in chaos. Some demanded immediate war. Others begged for peace. Many simply argued in circles. The name Luke Carter echoed again and again. This mysterious admiral who commanded the impossible fleet. Their images filled the Council's holoscreens. Black warships with glowing white crests, fleets that moved like shadows of gods. Ambassador Rennock shouted above the noise, his crimson scales shimmering. Do you not understand? Every day we wait, they grow stronger. They already command fear greater than all our armies combined. We must unite now, before they dictate our future. His words struck like thunder. But others hissed in protest. Ambassador Lyrish coiled her serpentine body in defiance. And what if we attack them? What if they strike back and shatter our fleets as they shattered the Shaker? You would lead us into our own graves. The chamber filled with hisses, roars, and shouts once more. Then it happened. The Council's screens flickered. Static filled the chamber, one by one. Every display went black. A silence fell as delegates looked around in alarm. Then the screens lit up again, and a single figure appeared. Admiral Luke Carter stood tall, his black uniform carrying the crest of humanity. Behind him loomed the horizon's edge, its vast frame filling the background. His voice was calm, steady, and cold. "We are not myths," he said. His words echoed through every speaker, every screen, every corner of the chamber. The ambassadors froze, staring wide. "We are not gone. We are humanity, and we are here to stay." His words carried across light years into every home, and every station tuned to the Council's broadcast. Luke's gaze did not waver. "You have spoken of us as shadows. You have laughed at our name. You have told your children we were only stories, but now you see us. Now you know the truth, and you will remember, humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not vanish. We endured in silence, and now we rise." His voice rolled like a storm. In the council chamber, ambassadors shifted uneasily. Some whispered in fear. Others clenched their fists in anger, but none dared to interrupt. Luke's image filled every screen. His presence so powerful that even across the void it felt as though he stood in the room with them. Then his tone hardened. "We do not come to conquer, but we will not bow. We will not be hunted. Test us, and your fleets will burn as the Shaker burned. Leave us, and we will leave you in peace. But remember, this humanity is not yours to command, not yours to erase, not yours to chain. The stars are wide, and we are part of them now." The ambassadors sat in silence, their voices stolen. Rennick's claws tapped against the table nervously. Lyrish coiled tighter. Council leader Kelrose trembled as he gripped his staff. Never before had the chamber been so powerless. Never before had one voice silenced so many. On the worlds beyond, billions watched the broadcast. Farmers in fields froze as Luke's words carried over their radios. Merchants in busy markets stopped mid-bargain to stare at flickering screens. Children listened wide-eyed, repeating his words in whispers. "We are humanity, and we are here to stay, across the stars." The myths had spoken, and their ultimatum was clear. On the horizon's edge, Luke Carter lowered his hand. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Captain Nina Roberts stood beside him, her eyes searching his face. "They heard you," she said quietly. Luke's reply was soft, but heavy with finality. "Good. Now the galaxy knows the truth, far away." The council chamber erupted once more, but this time the noise was different. No longer scattered arguments, but raw fear. Fear wrapped in anger. Fear wrapped in silence. Some demanded they submit to humanity's will. Others cried for uniting against them. But all agreed on one thing: nothing would ever be the same again as the chamber spiraled into chaos. Luke Carter stood calm aboard his flagship, the weight of 1,000 worlds pressing against him, but he did not falter. His ultimatum had been delivered. Humanity's voice had shaken the galaxy. And now every empire would have to decide, would they stand with the myths reborn or against them?